In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
Working men's Paris with its commune will be forever celebrated as the glorious harbinger of a new society. Its martyrs are enshrined in the great heart of the working class. Its exterminators, history has already nailed to that eternal pillory from which all of the prayers of the priests will not avail to redeem them. Karl Marx. This is going to be a fun one.
The Abracast. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Please note the explicit content indicator. This means that I use adult language. I do not speak in a humorless, public radio hushed monotone. I am excited and enthusiastic about the information that I present and the topics I discuss. You will hear ice rattle in my glass throughout the show. On the show, I joke about bodily functions, sex acts, religion, and politics. The topics may seem random or scattered through the back catalog. A list of show topics in chronological order is provided on the featured topic link at Advertise.com. If any of these issues might trigger you, this might not be the podcast for you, and I wish you good luck finding a show more to your liking. It's that time again. The music is low. The party is over. The fire is dying down, and all the ordinary people passed out long ago. Now we are the only ones left. Oh, shit, sorry. I'm messing around on Twitter over here. Welcome to the Evercast. I'm John Towers. Hey, so we're going to do something a little bit different this evening. Well, first of all, we haven't done a straight up history episode in quite a while. So we're killing two birds with one stone here. The other thing that we're doing, so I have I have to rearrange my whole episode order list because I've been working on or thinking about doing this whole thing on communism and or socialism, whatever. But for one specific reason, I actually have to kind of rearrange it and start it a little bit earlier than I thought I was going to have to start it. And I'm going to do this episode as a straight up history episode. I mean, you'll understand my opinions, I believe, but I'll keep my remarks about the current events until after the show. So after the wrap up and all that stuff, I'll come back on. We'll kind of do like a post-credit scene and I'll talk a little bit about the way that I see what's happening and why I had to move this episode specifically up in the in my programming schedule. What? You're asking me why it's going to be after the show. Well, it's because I know when I get blatantly political, I'll say politely, I get criticized for it. So that's the out. If you don't want to listen to my politics, don't listen to the end of the show. When you hear the wrap up at the end, just unplug. But if you're curious what's going on, or the way that I see it, the lay of the land per se, about these primaries and what's going on, stay to the end of the show, and I'll let you know what I think. Is that a deal, everybody? You, the little snowflakes out there that don't like when I talk about my politics. You know, I operate in this occult space, and I operate in this conspiracy space, and I operate in this history space, and literally all three of those spaces are dominated by the left, right? So, you know, I'll just reserve my fucking comments until the end, and we'll get through this fun, crazy story, and then I'll fucking talk my shit. You don't have to listen to it if you don't want to. So, another interesting thing about this is before I started researching this, I had never even heard of this story. I had no idea about it. So it's interesting, especially because it was such a big influence on Lenin and on Marx and on Engels, actually. They really dug the story that I'm about to tell you guys. So it's interesting. I think it was surprising to me that I never heard of this. So the featured book is The Fall of Paris, The Siege and the Commune, 1870 to 1871 by a guy named Alistair Horne. And also I'm a full disclosure kind of guy when I rely on Wikipedia. So I did get into Wikipedia a little bit. But there's for numbers and stuff. So, you know, take that as you will. I always like to let you guys know when I do use Wikipedia, because it's sort of derisive nowadays. And just as a kind of a side note, the interesting thing I was thinking about when I was prepping this episode was I was thinking this is like the worst of both sides of this situation, right? Like the government seems to me that the rightful national government overreacted, perhaps, and definitely the radicals involved overreacted. And that's why the context of the story is so important, because I think when people look at stuff like this, and just like anything really, like when people look at stuff like this and they go, you know, they forget the stuff around it, or maybe they just don't emphasize it enough. But we need to look at the context, what took place before the story, to understand, if at all possible, get any kind of understanding about what happened when this fucking thing gets rolling, right? And I'm going to try to highlight that a lot as we're going through it. So, I mean, let's get started already. Before we going, there's been a lot of changes on the website, Advertise.com, if you're interested. A lot of stuff's being added as we speak. New things are being worked on. And also for you guys that are interested in the t-shirts, I just got my first shirt shipment today, and it fucking looks fantastic. I was really worried that the art would not stand up to the enlargement that I had to do to fit the formatting of the shirt. No worries, sons. This shirt looks great. I have another shipment coming very soon with the second shirt, and I'm going to get more up there. Certainly by next month there'll be one. I'm working on getting one with if not the cover art of the show, at least the sigil, because I know everyone loves that sigil. Maybe I should take. Okay. Oh, hey. So summon your vessel of the art, and join me in thanking our Patreon and Subscribe Star supporters. Thank you guys. If you're interested in supporting the show, that would be a great way to do it. And thank you guys. And here we go. We're going to get into this. I'm getting used to the new ice cube shapes. No one's contacted me about it. Is it bothering anybody? I haven't seen any iTunes reviews that are negative because of the new ice cube shapes, which is really what I thought was going to happen. It's a whole different acoustical phenomenon with these different shaped ice cubes. Oh, where was I? Oh, I haven't started yet. Context. Our story takes place it actually kind of starts at the end of the Franco-Prussian War. There are two empires fighting in this war. This is the German Empire versus the French Empire. The Germans were busy unifying. They were trying to unify, and they were shaking the balance of power in Europe. And the French Parliament voted to declare war on Prussia. And they invaded the German territory. This, I think, was seen as an act of hubris from France. They were like, look at these German motherfuckers. They don't know what they're doing. And because of the territory that they were at least solidifying, if not taking over with this unification business, actually it like threatened a border, or it threatened something. The Rhine River had something to do with it. And the Rhine, I've been in the Rhine. I've seen it. I've been in it. The Rhine is where when Patton was crossing the Rhine, he had his driver stop, and he fucking stood up and took a leak on the bridge, like over the bridge into the water. Fucking George S. Patton marking his territory. Anyhow, the French were like, we can't have, they're like, ho, ho, ho. Sacre bleu. We can't have all this unification business. And they foolishly, as it turned out, invaded German territory. So here's some numbers. The Germans suffered about 44,700 dead, 89,700 wounded, and about 10,000, a little bit over, missing or captured soldiers. The French suffered 138,800 dead, 140,000 wounded, 474,400 captured or missing. Now, we also had large civilian casualties, 250,000 civilians. This is including 162,000 Germans who died of the smallpox epidemic that was spread by French POWs. So this is interesting because, we're getting a lot of epidemic porn nowadays. I'm not talking about the corona porn that's on Pornhub. There literally is coronavirus porn on Pornhub. What I'm talking about is the media. So I'm not saying it's not a thing, whatever. Certainly it's a thing, but when the media is telling you something, dudes, you got to fucking take it with a grain of salt. So fucking they turn into toilet paper salesmen and all this. So in this Franco-Prussian War, the Germans wound up trouncing the French. The whole war lasted from July 19th to July 19th, 1870 to January 28th, 1871. And after the Battle of Sedan, that's where the armies met in a 4-door Honda and duked it out, where the French army of the Second Empire was crushed. Emperor Napoleon surrendered to the Prussian Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, who grabbed the mic and said, You got what I need. And you say she's just a friend. And you say she's just a friend. Oh, baby, you. Now I gotta make a note. So if you search Abercast on Spotify, the first thing you'll see is the podcast. But if you just go like one or two things underneath it, you're going to see a playlist. What I do whenever I do a song on the podcast, I add it to this Spotify playlist, and it's it's growing to be very eclectic. But now I have to make a note to add Bismarcky on there. So news of this defeat, the Battle of Sedan, where Napoleon III surrendered, rocked the people of Paris. Son, with the fall of the Second French Empire, the government left Paris and they moved to Tours, and they're like, yo, this shit's not working out. We have to reorganize. So they reorganized as the new Third Republic of France. and they attempted to keep fighting for a few more months. The Prussian Third Army marched on Paris, led personally by King William I of Prussia. On September 19th, 1870, the siege of Paris began. So this is interesting because the Prussians didn't bomb the fuck out of the city. What they did do is they blockaded the city, starving it out. And we've talked about this technique of siege, this blockade technique of siege over and over again. We talked about it in the Crusades episodes. We talked about it in the Battle of Vienna episodes. I have a comic book written and drawn by me all about the Siege of Vienna. Abercast.com. Anyhow, so what they did is they didn't destroy shit per se. They just surrounded it and didn't let any supplies get in. So we're going to add just a little bit more context to our broader context. This is context times 2. The people of Paris were so bad off during the siege that they started fucking slaughtering zoo animals to eat. This is the same thing. We're not into the communism section just yet, but this is the same thing that communism did to Venezuela. They slaughtered their zoo animals to eat too. And so they had these 2 elephants in this park in Paris, and they named it Castor and Pollux, which is cute because, Castor and Pollux were like these mythological twins. Anyhow, they had these 2 elephants named Castor and Pollux, and you could pay the elephant meister, I don't know, the elephant chancellor of France. I don't know who you pay, but these elephants would give you can jump on them and they would give you like a lift and they would give you a ride through the park. That's a cool thing. I'd ride an elephant through a park maybe. Anyhow, these poor sons of bitches shot and fucking cooked these elephants to eat them. They were eating everything. They were eating cats, dogs, they were chasing rats. They were eating horses. And this all ultimately, on top of everything else it was doing, it was adding stress between the classes of the city. We're going to talk about this a little bit more later. The poor were eating dogs and rats and shit, and they were getting angry at what they called the bourgeoisie. They were like eating their rats, and they were like looking and they're like, the butcher, he's not eating rats. This rich motherfucker over here is not eating rats. I got to eat all the goddamn rats and the fucking dogs and stuff. The rich people aren't eating this shit. So this lays the groundwork. This is the background on the canvas on which the story we're talking about tonight takes place. Is this because it all happens so fast, and this is kind of like the gasoline that's being poured on this bonfire. There were these troops defending Paris. They were called the National Guard because Paris was being besieged, and it eventually fell on January 28th, 1871. The commander of the city's defenses, I'm going to destroy a lot of French names this evening. I'm not doing it out of any kind of malice. I just don't speak French very well. I spent like a week in France, and I will still be lost on the metro if it wasn't for an American college girl who was like, "Are you fucking lost? Do you need help finding a way off of this metro?" And I'm like, yes, I do need help. The commander of the city's defense was General Louis Jules Trochu. General Louis Jules Trochu. He had like 400 of these bronze muzzle-loaded cannon surrounding the city. As part of his defenses, this is going to be a very important part of the story in a little bit. And so he was able to assemble a defense of about 20,000 regulars and 300,000 militia known as this National Guard. But I feel like I need to explain a little bit more about the National Guard. because it's such a gigantic part of this story. These dudes had very little training. And at this point, they had almost zero experience. They were organized by neighborhoods. The National Guard units from the upper or middle class areas were supported by the National Guard units from the upper and middle class neighborhoods were from the upper and middle class neighborhoods, so they tended to support the national government. And those from the lower and working class neighborhoods were far more politicized. These guys had no military discipline. They would refuse to follow orders or wear uniforms, etc. So another thing before I continue is that we have to kind of talk. I think that I need to talk a little bit about how radicalization works. I'm not talking about current events. So I need to talk about how this radicalization worked in Paris of 1870, 1871, or France of 1870, 1871. So these highly dense populated areas, these cities, had, these quote intellectuals, unquote, these artists, these poets, these, deep thinkers, these the academic types. And they tended to lean more what we would call left, where the people in rural areas were more, self-reliant, more community, not like I'm in this community, not like a community, but they were like community based. They were organized around their churches. They were like this. So they tended to go more towards the less interference is better from the government sort of idea. So if you think that you can map that up against what's happening today, then that's on you, bro. I did not say that at all. And this bears fruit later. I'm going to, just a little hint. Once this shit starts kicking off, one of the first things that they did is they started drawing up plans to get agents to other cities to introduce these ideas in these other population centers. So if you think that's something that might translate to something that's happening today or in the 80s or 90s or, McCarthy era, whatever. I'm not saying that. That's just a historical perspective on this thing. Okay, back to the kind of the tail of the tape. The Prussians had 240,000 soldiers, and during the siege of Paris, September 19th, 1870, a few units of this National Guard marched to the middle of Paris and in a political demonstration demanded that a new government, they called it a commune, be elected. Eventually, they wound up dispersed peacefully by the regular soldiers who were loyal to the national government. October 5,000 protesters marched demanding immediate municipal elections and rifles. October 8, Eugene Varlin led 7,000 National Guard members, and they marched to the center of Paris, chanting, "Long live the Commune! Long live the Commune! Long live the Commune!" What do we want? Rifles. When do we want them? Now! October 31st, they took over the Hotel de Ville. Now, when I was doing this prep, I was like, what is it with this hotel? Why are there, it pops up over and over again in the story. And I'm like, why are they so interested in this hotel? And then I read something else and it said the Hotel de Ville is the city hall. And I was like, oh, it's not a hotel. It's the city hall. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Because, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, September 27th, the only telegraph line connecting Paris with the rest of France was found by the Prussians and cut. So here it is, Paris, 1870. Imagine it, Paris. My wife watches a lot of Golden Girls. So here's my Sophia. Imagine it, Paris, 1870. Your only telegraph line is cut by the Germans sieging the city. Okay, so 1871, January 22, another skirmish between the National Guard and loyal soldiers took place. The radicals leading the National Guard called for the military to be placed under civil control. Interesting. February 24, I want to say Adolphe Thiers, the new executive of the French national government, signed an armistice with Prussia. That, this is key. These two next pieces of information are very important. They signed an armistice with Prussia that disarmed the French army, but not the National Guard. This becomes so important later because it explains why the National Guard still had their guns. And it also explains how these communists were able to solidify their base for so long. They were acting in a vacuum essentially because the government literally gave up their guns. Ironically, one of the two critiques that Lenin would go on to say about this Paris Commune situation is that they didn't do enough to secure their position. He said that they underestimated the significance of the direct military operations. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself because this comes up later. Tail of the tape back to it. The Prussians suffered about 12,000 dead or wounded. Paris suffered 24,000 dead or wounded, 146,000 captured, and 47,000 civilian casualties. Part of the deal that the national government signed, this armistice, was that Paris would pay an indemnity of 200 million francs, and the fortifications of the city would be surrendered. The German troops stationed outside the city, they angered the Paris citizens, of course, and the resentment against the new French government grew. So here we're having these stressors. We're having this class structure stressor and this kind of us versus them stressor with this newly formed government and this town, this whole city that's been besieged. And also this thing, 200 million francs is a lot of fucking francs. I wonder if I mistranslated or mistyped any of that. Because that seems like a lot. The city sort of fractures. There is still this mayor and stuff and elected officials who are loyal to the national government, but there is also this new central committee of the National Guard. So these radicals have commandeered this quote, quasi-military force that still has firearms. Is being led by these radicals who are acting independently from the government. The National Guard took 400, remember the bronze cannons? They took these cannons that were stationed around Paris and they redeployed them in the working class neighborhoods to keep them away from the regular army and to use against the national government. However, Thiers, who was also determined to get these cannons, March 18th, he sends 2 brigades of soldiers, and they went to try to get these cannons, and a small group of National Guard started shooting at them, at the soldiers. And a bunch of the soldiers broke ranks and joined the mob. The soldiers were ordered to fire, but they refused, causing all kinds of hell. When the dust cleared, the mob had taken a bunch of the officers prisoner, and actually the generals of the 2 brigades, General Clement Thomas and Lecomte. Well, anyhow, there was no structure. There was no court. There was no trial. They just took these 2 generals and they beat them with their rifles and then shot them dead. An angry mob, imagine being beat to death by a bunch of angry Frenchmen. The government retreated out of Paris and they went to Versailles. That's another thing. I'm not sure how to pronounce Versailles. So it's Versailles, maybe, or Versailles. So I'm going to vacillate between the two of them, and probably neither of them are right. So if this is something that's going to trigger you, just tune out now. The only guy that's telling you to just leave my podcast because I'm going to piss you off. There was a debate so they started solidifying themselves as the commune, and there was a debate among the commune, and this idea that they should chase, engage, and destroy the retreating army immediately. However, instead they chose to solidify their position within the city. So remember I mentioned Lenin's critique earlier? Here's the rest of it. Instead of launching, I was going to try to do a accent. I'm not good at. Instead of launching a resolute, no, I'm not going to do it. Instead of launching a resolute offensive against Versailles that would have crowned its victory in Paris, it tarried, and it gave the Versailles government time to gather the dark forces and prepare for blood-soaked week in May. But here, I'm getting ahead of myself again. The National Guard moved quickly to take power, and it started to move through the city, seizing these strategic and logistic targets, munition stores, railway stations, that sort of thing. That night, over the Hotel de Ville, a red flag was flown. March 22nd, a group of people protesting the National Guard were murdered by them. The Central Committee of the National Guard declared that the elected officials were not the legitimate power of Paris, and the Guard seized City Hall, the Hotel de Ville. So this whole thing reminds me a lot of that Dark Knight movie where Bane just took over Gotham and he instituted all the fake trials and they were just executing people. I think that's where part of that movie came from this, I think. I'm going to rewatch it tonight. I'm going to look. It's on Netflix, I think. Maybe not. I have it here. I don't know, whatever. God damn it. I'm so behind. This episode is going to be so fucking long.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I like coffee, bonfires, walks on the beach, old books. But you know what I really like? The paranormal. Strange stories and experiences, psychic phenomena. So, if you're interested, come join me and bring an open mind and a healthy dose of skepticism, and we'll see what happens.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
So on March 26th, this commune, which was a council of 92 members, were elected. One council member, this is the way it was supposed to be. One council member for every 20,000 residents. However, the city was so divided and terrified that over half the city didn't even vote. And a lot of the folks who won from upper and middle class areas refused to take their seats. And that left the council at about 60 members, and every single one of them insane, radical communists. So after they seize power, of course, what's their next move? The next day, they had a parade. It always reminds me of like the Khrushchev with all the tanks and the missiles and all and the artillery pieces and stuff in Red Square. And the reason it reminds me of that is because everyone was waving red flags. Karl Marx would go on to call the Commune of Paris the, quote, dictatorship of the proletariat, unquote. During the first meeting of the Commune, it was held on March 28th. I'm just going to run through some of the decrees. Actually, all the decrees I can find. I'm going to run through them. They abolished the death penalty, which they seem to backslide on this almost immediately, as we will see. They abolished military conscription. They eventually backslide on this, and actually when Marx writes about the Paris Commune, this is one thing that he criticizes. He says if they would have instituted conscription right away, that could have helped them save themselves. Save them from what? Well, we're going to see. They planned to send delegates to other cities to spread or launch new communes. They institute a rule keeping the deliberations of the commune secret. This is also something that we see wherever communism is. Secret trials, secret meetings, secret communications. They went on to do more decrees. They separated the church from the state as a rule. Communism has to at least mute the idea of God and religion, because what they are doing is they're setting up the state as a religion. You see Lyndon Baines Johnson and what he did, with the Great Society. I would even be like FDR and the New Deal. All right. Let me get back to it. Don't get me wrong. Separating the church from the state this is one of those things that they did that wasn't necessarily bad. But this assault against religion and the idea of God, is something to note, right? Because they also confiscated all church property, including funds. They took religion out of schools. This is something that we've seen here. 200 here. This is a big one. If you're like, come on, no, it's fine. Like, affronting against religion is okay. 200 priests, nuns, and monks were arrested and held hostage. School materials were provided for free. We're going to touch on this education business here a little bit more in depth in a second. Healthcare / first aid stations were set up. They seized banks. This ultimately doesn't mean too much, because another thing we see whenever we see communism is a total lack of understanding of a living, breathing economy, purposefully or not. I have my theories about this. Pro-national government newspapers were shut down, and strict censorship was set up for the media that was allowed to stay open. Again, this seems to be one of these hallmarks of communism. Ironically, this is why there always seems to be strong literacy in communist countries, which sort of became this Bernie Sanders meme recently. He was out there for the last week and a half trying to defend Castro, saying that he had a great literacy program. Well, the reason that they had a great literacy program is because one of the means of controlling these people is by controlling the media. So these people have to be able to consume media. No, there was no CNN back then, right? So they must be able to read the newspapers so they understand what I'm telling them to do. So pro-commune newspapers were expanded upon and funded. They started yanking down statues as monuments of barbarism or symbols of brute force and false pride. Here's another one, right? We see this ceremonial destruction. This is part of the rewriting history fetish that communists have. So sorry, I'm trying to do mundane tasks while doing this. So like the mundane task I was talking about is I was trying to take my flannel shirt off while I was talking. So we see a bunch of these hallmarks of communism here in just this first set of decrees and so forth. But you might be asking yourself, but where's all the paranoia? Where's all the murder? Where's all the death? Just wait, my dear listeners. This is coming. March 28th, this aristocrat, Edmund Guncourt, who was probably terrified what was going on, he writes in his diary, "The newspapers see nothing in what is going on but a question of decentralization, as if it had anything to do with decentralization. What is happening is nothing less than the conquest of France by the worker and the reduction to slavery under his rule of the noble bourgeoisie and the peasant. Government is passing from the hands of the haves to those of the have-nots. Form those who have a material interest in the preservation of society to those who have no interest whatsoever in order, stability, or preservation." This is somebody who's not looking through the history through a crystal ball or his imagination. He is living this, and he's saying these people have no interest in stability, order, or preservation. Perhaps in a great law of change that governs all earthly things, the workers are for modern society what the barbarians were for ancient society, the convulsive agents of disillusion and destruction. Unquote. It's powerful diary entry, I would say. Meanwhile, in Versailles, Thiers was scrambling to rebuild his army after the German armistice. POWs who were being returned from Germany, they were being patched up and equipped. They were getting ready to deal with this commune. On April 2nd, the National Guard tried to attack the new army of Versailles with 5 battalions, but they were quickly defeated. You're like, 5 battalions is a lot of battalions, but you have to understand, bro, they're just dudes running around with guns. They are not an army. They're thugs. Our aristocrat Goncourt writes of the skirmish. The sound of gunfire about 10 o'clock in the direction of Courbevoie. Thank God civil war has broken out. When things have reached this pass, civil war is preferable to hypocritical skullduggery. I set out straight away for Paris, studying people's faces, which are sort of a barometer of events in revolutionary times. I see in them a hidden satisfaction, a sly joy. Finally, a newspaper tells me that Belleville troops have been beaten, and I am filled with jubilation, which I savor at length. Let tomorrow bring what it will. This seems pretty optimistic for what this guy's about to live through. All right. So during this military engagement, 5 National Guard soldiers were captured and taken prisoner. 2 of the prisoners were deserters, which means that they are some of the ones that broke ranks and they joined the commune. These 2 deserters were to be shot. Instead, the new regular army shot all 5. The commune made a new decree in light of these executed prisoners that any person accused of accused of complicity with the Versailles government could be immediately arrested, imprisoned, and be tried by a special court, and if found guilty, immediately killed. So what happens in this situation? It's predictable, right? Communism, or I don't know, a broader, if I don't want to put so fine of a point on it, broader tyranny breeds paranoia, this paranoia that I was talking about. Any POW would be brought before this special court to decide whether they are to be executed or held hostage. The commune, in response to this, rounded up more clergy because they were accused of complicity with the Versailles government. In reaction to this decree, Versailles made themselves a new decree, setting up a summary military tribunal to judge and punish members of the National Guard and the supporters of the commune within 24 hours of capture. So here's another fracture within the commune. As a military confrontation looms and becomes inevitable, the commune members wanted to shift priorities. Some of them wanted to shift priorities to the military, and other members of the commune wanted to continue their political and social programs and reform. The division and the hysteria sort of fractured the committee and the commune supporters. The folks on either side of the issue were able to point fingers on the other, and they were able to say, like, hey, look, man, they're fucking complicit with this new government. This guy, Gustave Flaubert, says, I come from Paris, and I do not know whom to speak to. I am suffocated, and I am quite upset. Or rather out of heart. The sight of the ruins is nothing compared to the great Parisian insanity. With very rare exceptions, everybody seems to me to be fit for the straitjacket. One half of the population longs to hang the other half, which returns the compliment. So that's just to give you a little bit of insight into the craziness that happened. Because when you look into this, a lot of modern historians whitewash this shit. They're like, no, these guys just took over and it was a popular movement and they got, I don't want to ruin the end, but it wasn't a popular movement. It was a tyranny of a dictatorship of the proletariat. There's few radicals infected these people and used their classist views to weaponize them. And then, just like every kind of leftist movement, they just started eating themselves apart from the inside. Anyhow, be sure to stay to the end of the episode to hear what I have to say about all this. We're going to go long. I'm committed, bros. I'm committed. We're going to get this done. So a lot of folks started getting rounded up and arrested on suspicion of treason, intelligence with the enemy, or, wait for it, I'm sure you didn't see this coming, insults to the commune. So here it is. You can't insult the commune. And this is funny because just today, Twitter... You're not going to believe this. Just today, Twitter changed their rules. What they call them, I can't remember. But they're like, you can't make fun of anybody's age anymore. You can't post any tweets making fun of people's ages. I wonder why they did that. I wonder what that could be about. Or senility. It's the age and senility, I think. You can't make any more senile jokes. So I'm like, you hear that, right? And you're like, the fucking fix is in. All right, that was a little bit of a primer for what's going to go on after the show. The commune started to get ready for this inevitable military confrontation, and every able-bodied man was now in the National Guard. Remember, the National Guard was organized by their neighborhoods, so the soldiers elected their own officers, regardless of their leadership skills or their military skill. Now we're going to get into what was called the Blood Week. And when I originally saw this, I was like, what are they talking about? Like, Sacre Bleu is the menstruation. All right, May 21st. The National Guard, for some reason, all occupied. They withdrew into this one section of the city. One lone Third Republic engineer crossed the moat that surrounded the city and inspected the fortifications. And he saw that there was no one manning these defensive positions. So the new French army just walked into the city. Before 4 a.m., 60,000 soldiers occupied France. So I need to just mention a few things. One is I need to toast to this one engineer. God bless the goddamn combat engineers. That's what I have to say. Also, if they had real military leadership, you would never withdraw from your defensive positions into one single area. Imagine if they had the idea where these dudes were and they had some fucking artillery pieces. They could have ended this in 20 minutes. Instead, it drug out for a fucking week, and we're going to look at every single day of it. The National Guard leaders, when they realized what was going on, they notified the leaders of the Commune that they were under attack. The Commune just ignored the attack. They were actually in a trial deciding the fate of this captured French officer. They couldn't be bothered to allow the new National Guard to redeploy or to get reinforcements. The Guard and the Commune members started pointing fingers, and paranoia, rumors, and chaos ensued. May 22. Open fighting in the streets. There were cannon and artillery duel. The army took a few prisoners and executed them. The Commune executed some army soldiers that they had captured. May 23. The National Guard just being outmatched. They were just getting fucked in the ass in the streets of Paris. The army executed 300 prisoners. On the third day, the Commune and the National Guard started burning public buildings, including libraries, motherfuckers, and museums. We love books here. We don't stand for the burning of books, which is something else that socialists do. Sorry, not sorry. May 24, the Commune burned down their headquarters, what I thought was a hotel. The Hotel de Ville, which is the city hall, continued to burn down more buildings, theaters, churches. They actually fucking set Notre Dame on fire. They set the Louvre on fire. These motherfuckers burning down libraries. These fantastic works of architecture, which they could never hope to fucking design or to build, in art, which they can't do. Fighting in the streets continued, and total ineffective leadership, no discipline, and any lack of a plan, the National Guard pretty much just disintegrated. The French army continued its advance and took prisoners who would later stand before a military tribunal and be executed. This is what you have to do. You got to stamp it out. The Commune started offing remember the 200 or so nuns, clerks, and monks that they were keeping as hostage. They just started offing them with no due process, no reason, just offing them. This is what happened. You just can't have central control. It's evil. May 25th, the army occupied and controlled 3/5 of Paris, and they were moving to get the rest of Paris. Still being met with uncoordinated resistance and all over lunacy. I have written in my notes. I don't remember writing it. It's funny. May 26th. The National Guard stormed the prisons and took whatever hostages and prisoners, cops, priests, civilians who had been arrested. They took them outside to be physically abused by angry mobs before being lined up against walls and executed. May 27th and 28th, and during this final day, this final battle or whatever, whoever was left of the National Guard was hiding in this cemetery, the Père Lachaise. This is where Jim Morrison is buried. Have you ever watched the Doors movie? I've been here. It's crazy. Like, you walk in and these, I don't know. It's like they totally disrespected like everybody's graves and tombs and stuff. There's like Jim with arrows spray painted like all over the place, so you can find your little way to his little fucking headstone or whatever. When I got there, I had a video camera, and there's this little fat French guard who was like, no. Ho, ho, ho. You can't. He like jumped over the grave to tell me I can't film there. And I was like, what? Look at everybody. What are you talking about? I can't film here. This is a free country, motherfucker. And then I was like, oh, I'm not in America. Anyhow, my friends and I, when we were there, we took a bottle, like a little bottle of Johnny Walker Red, and we saved it. We all took a shot, and we dumped a little bit of it out for our dead homie Jim Morrison. And that was the start of a crazy fucking name. All right, I got to get to this, though. I mean, there's a lot of stories I could tell. I've been in the Notre Dame Cathedral. We walked in, and my buddy... okay, anyhow, I just got to get through. God, I'm running so long, and I still have this end of show thing to do. So, the leaders of the commune who survived the Blood Week were arrested, and they were sentenced to... Well, some of them got death, some of them got prison time, and some of them were exiled. And we have like a little epilogue here to the whole thing. Moscow. Vladimir Lenin writes, "We were only dwarves perched on the shoulders of those giants. In 1917, he celebrated by dancing in the snow in Moscow on the day that his Bolshevik government was more than 2 months old, surpassing the Paris Commune." All right. I'm John. This is the Abercast. It's crazy, fucking bloody, terrifying, awful story. I dodged a lot of modern politics at this point to tell it. But if you hold on after this, I'm going to weigh in on why we had to move this up. Some of my thoughts on the Democratic primary and all that. If you don't like what I have to say, don't fucking give me no bad reviews, because I'm telling you to get the fuck out now. Get the fuck out now.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that, plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com. Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.
Hey, did you learn something? Did you laugh? Supporting me is a way for you to be a part of the Abercast and ensure its growth and sustainability. It also means I can create a normal schedule for shows and bonus shows, as well as the exclusive Fellowcraft episodes. By supporting the show, you are not only a listener, but you are a part of the show. You supporting the show gives me a way to offer fun rewards as a thank you for showing your appreciation and support for our projects. Do you have an idea for a reward that you don't see? Let me know. My supporters are my partners. I currently pay for you to listen to the Advercast. Not only do I pay the hosting bills out of my own pocket, I volunteer my time and talent to each and every episode of the Advercast. The price of books, the time and resources of reading and researching, the massive amounts of gin and tonic needed, the equipment it takes to record the shows, the time and resources it takes to create the bonus material, and the cost to maintain the internet presence. Is it worth your support? I don't know. I'm proud of the Advercast, and I feel like I'm improving all the time. In addition to creating the show that you dig and that you are excited about, I also have a full-time commitment and other obligations. So why financial support? All of the supporters help me focus my time on the quality and development of the podcast. And what if you can't afford, $1 or $3 or $10 or whatever a month? Believe me, I get that. There are many degrees of support, but if you can't support the show financially, please consider leaving a 5-star rate and review on your preferred podcast app. And don't forget that you could sign into the mailing list and still unlock a lot of bonus content. Thank you. I cannot put into words how much it means to me that you listen to the show each time I post a new episode. Your feedback, support, and love of the stories that we talk about here is what keeps me going. All right, here we go. If you're still tuned in, I thank you, I guess. If you've tuned out, thank you, I guess, that you're not going to leave me any fucking shitty reviews for this shit. Okay, so here's where we are in this Democratic primary. I had a list. I was working on a long list of these socialist fucking things to do because I was convinced that Bernie was going to wind up being the nominee. But now, and I was wrong about, I will say, if I've ever said this on the show, I was wrong about Joe Biden's chances. He's going to be the nominee. The DNC is behind him. They're throwing all kinds of weight against him, or not against him, for him, to get it, to get it, which seems ridiculous because the guy has no idea where he is. He has no idea what he's doing. He has no idea who his wife is. Like, literally, it's hilarious. But that he was like their last play, like to do it. Because if Bernie were to get up there, it would be a landslide of epic proportions. So there's this study by a Dr. Epstein, not Epstein didn't kill himself, Epstein, a different Epstein, but he's like this psychologist or psychiatrist, and he does media studies, and he is out there ringing the bell about what social media, Google and YouTube are doing to affect the election. And he's like, no matter what happens, no conservative, no Republican is going to win against what they're doing. And so what I think happened is I think they use this technology, and we know, I mean, we've seen like the leaked videos from Project Veritas and all this other kind of stuff about, the Google people going like, this is never going to happen again. We're going to change the algorithm and all this stuff. That's what I said earlier in the episode. Like, if it's media telling you something, just at least question it. Even if it's something as stupid as what YouTube video to watch next, because it's all bullshit. It's all fucking bullshit. So I think what happened is they made their decision. They got down to like 0 hour, and they made their decision, and they pushed Biden forward. Whether it is to lose or not, I don't know. But I do know that they're terrified of the Bernie Sanders getting cremated. He would get cremated. And it seems to me like Biden's just going to be like a sacrificial lamb because he stands no chance. Like Donald Trump is like a insult comic. And with the shit that's out there with him and his son and this Ukraine business and all this China business and like everything, like he doesn't stand a chance. He doesn't stand a chance. So I don't know how that lays out. But I thought for sure they would hide Biden because of all this Ukraine business. I underestimated that they were. See, the thing is that all the Democrats think like Bernie. They all want what Bernie wants, but Bernie is the only one that's out there saying it. Well, everyone that's not Bernie understands that they can't win if they go out there and tell the truth about what they want, right? And all they want is this crazy communism business. So here's the deal. Bernie and Biden are in a race. Each one of them wants to get to the 1,991 delegates. So the things we got to look out for is the signal, like statistically, neither one of them are going to hit this before the last debate. However, nobody wants this last debate to happen. Having these two old geezers standing out there jabbing at each other for 2 hours, nobody wants it. It's not going to help anybody, especially if the Democrats have their weight behind Biden, because he's going to lose because he is not coherent. Literally, just last week he was out there talking about Super Thursday. Like he is not coherent. He'll be able to keep his shit together for an hour, but that second hour is going to be over, son. No one's even going to know what he's talking about. He's going to be like Pop-Tarts, pickup trucks, and pancakes. Like he's not going to know anything. So I sat down and I tried to figure out how are they going to be able to cancel this thing before it happens. And statistically, I'm not good at numbers. Admittedly, I mentioned this, but so I'm trying to figure out what each state leading up to this last debate has in terms of delegates and how either one of them could reach this 1,991 delegate count, that magic number. And I can't see it. I can't figure out how they can do it because each one, it's not like even though Biden is leading or he's got this push behind him, he's not going to get every delegate between now and the last debate. So I'm trying to figure it out. So I think Bernie is dead in the water. He's dead in the water. He's never going to, it's like En Vogue. He's never going to get it, never going to get it. Never going to get it, never going to get it. But he's staying in because he's proven, Bernie, if you Bernie supporters are around, if you've made it this far, he's proved that he is willing to take a payoff. I'm not even sure if he's serious, but he's willing to take a payoff. The last time he took $1 million house from the DNC to support Hillary Clinton. He's willing to do it. Just look at it. Just look at what you know. Look at what you know, the facts. He's willing to do it. He's done it. This is why I thought that Bloomberg was going to be way more of a problem than he was. If he had any kind of charisma, he would have been dangerous. But I thought that it was going to be Bloomberg and Bernie, and I thought that Bernie was going to wind up taking a payout, which I think is what Bernie also thought was going to happen. Because if you look at him now, he's clueless. He has no idea what's going on. He doesn't know what's happening. It doesn't seem like he could read the room. Anyhow, so let me see. I just ripped my glasses off. Let me put them back on. All right. So they're on this race for these 1,991 delegates. I'm a little late in my cups. So Biden currently has 652 delegates or delegates. And Sanders has 573, which seems like it's tight. And I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not a numbers guy, but it's not tight. There are a bunch of primaries on the 10th where there are about 352 delegates. Sanders is, I believe he's going to lose Michigan. But he'll probably pick up Washington, right? Washington State. The last Democratic debate is the 15th in Arizona, and I think that they're rushing. They're trying to figure out how to cancel this because, like I said, it's 2 hours of Statler and Waldorf fucking going knives out on each other. But it's funny because as crazy as, as aggressive as Bernie's gotten, he's never once mentioned Hunter Biden. And I'm like, that's the easy play. And this is what you're going to, if Biden gets up there with Trump on a debate stage for 2 hours, all you're going to hear is Ukraine. Because it's fact. Like, it's out there. They're talking about issuing subpoenas right now for congressional hearings. Like, it's over, son. Like, Biden was like, yeah, sure, I'll run for president. He's going to wind up in fucking prison. Anyhow, the last Democratic debate is the 15th. It's the Arizona primary. The debate for the Arizona primary, which is the 17th. Arizona only has 78 delegates, but the Florida primary is also on the 17th, and Florida has 219 delegates just by itself. But there are two other states for a total of like 577 delegates. On March 24th, Georgia has a primary, which is like 105 delegates. But Bernie, I don't think Bernie has a chance in Georgia. So what I'm saying is, it's like, it's not over. Like, there's no stone cold stunner, but Bernie's done. Like, Bernie's done. And it's weird. Like, Ohio's coming up as well. And it's like, I don't know what's wrong with fucking Ohioans. Like, Ohio's a big state, and like, their thing is like, no presidents ever got elected if they didn't take Ohio. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm from Ohio, and every single one of my family members are Bernie supporters. I don't understand how I came from like this fucking crazy communist family. I don't know. All right, so there it is. That's the abbreviated idea. Like, I thought I was going to talk a little bit more about it, but I mean, it's late. I've been doing this for, I don't know, an hour and 15 minutes or something like that. So, plus, I don't know how long I'm not sure how long you people hung in there for this. I don't know if anyone's even listening to this. So, all right, I'm done. Bye. Hey, I'm John. This is the Abercast. Bye. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I hope you like the show. Let me know what you think. Bye.